stream that we're doing online today with Florida. Great guy, Robert Carrow from his company. He's a communications expert, like 6,000 hours of paid speaking gigs. That's amazing. And also, working with the top Fortune 500 companies. Robert Carrow, welcome back to the show, mate.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, mate. And look, we actually met via Clubhouse again. Clubhouse is knocking them down. An incredible audio app that now is available on Android. So now it's really blowing up big. And what struck me about Rob was not only his heart and his soul, but just the frequency and tone of the man. Like his work with the best companies in the world acknowledges that communication is the most powerful tool that we have, whether you're in business or not, just in general in life. So today we're going to dive down deep into what that means for you watching, some great tips and tricks I'm sure you're going to pick up. And also I'm going to learn plenty of things from you, Rob. So I guess the first question to get us started is that, where did you realize that, and when did you realize that communication is the most powerful tool that you could nurture?
Well, for me, I believe it was when I was in law enforcement. So before I started off as an entrepreneur building businesses and got into the speaking and training company, I was in law enforcement. I spent 14 years in law enforcement. And if you're going to be successful in law enforcement, you have to be an effective communicator. Your communication skills can really be tested in that field. And I did a lot of things in that area, everything from patrol to investigations, where I was a detective. Again, you need to have communication skills, and as a field training officer as well. So good communication skills, and also great listening skills, right? Which, communication skills, the number one determinant of success by far. But great listening skills are the number one major component of communication. So great listening skills. And I think that's really where I started to sharpen that skill set, right? Because it was either become an effective communicator, become a good listener, and also, listen to what's not being said, right? It's where I really got introduced to the importance of nonverbal communication, which is 93% of communication. So that's kind of where I got my first taste of how important it was going to be, and kind of what propelled me from that point forward to where I am now.
Wow, great. And you're reminding me, so I used to run nightclubs for a long time, 20-something years, and I was always the guy which people call the bouncer, right? That he's a bouncer. The guy who's downstairs saying yay or nay, that we were running the business, but we acknowledge that the most important, powerful part of the business is how people are received. Which is why I was there. And I love what you said about the listening and the non-verbal communication being so crucial. And, one thing which I really much learned, and many cases not quite life and death, but quite serious, was that, how you deal with people. And as you mentioned, that sharpening your skill set of listening and this conflict resolution, this de-escalation, because in that environment, as I'm sure you'd find in law enforcement, it's always about escalation. People, when they escalate, things turn pear-shaped pretty fast. So you're always trying to, to de-escalate the situation, resolve any type of conflict, which I think is so powerful. And then, so then, as you mentioned before, you were saying you were in law enforcement. I remember when we had a chat before, you realized that there was this realization that you had, that it's like, well, I'm putting my life on the line for X amount, and I could be using those skills, right, in a way that would be more valuable in terms of time and money, and that split for myself and my family. Do you want to maybe dive into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, sure, Robert. So, in life, we make decisions either out of inspiration or desperation. And unfortunately for most people, it's desperation, right? People they have to wait until they hit a wall or they're circling the drain before they put up a hand and say, hey, this isn't working, right? I've got to do something different. And some people can take a lot of pain, and some people never get to that point at all. But for me, it was desperation. And I made a decision one night after nearly losing my life that, you know what? I love what I do because I was cross-trained. I was in law enforcement, but I was also a firefighter and a medic at the same time. And I love doing what I did. I love standing in the service of other people. And I had been doing that since I was 19 years old, but there's no money in it. And here I am after 14 years of doing this, putting myself out there, which I enjoyed, but I wasn't getting a lot in return. I couldn't pay my bills. I was having to work all my days off just to be able to try and survive. And that night, when it was nearly game over, desperation, I made a decision. I said, you know what, that's it. I've got to figure out another way to still stand in the service of other people, but, stand in the service of myself, right? I need to get something out of this. I want more. I'm tired of watching these TV shows of people traveling around the world on private jets and enjoying vacations and having comfort, or at that point for me, just having stability, right? Having financial stability. And I made a decision that night that I was going to make a change. I didn't know how, but I declared my why. I said, you know what? I'm going to go out. I'm still going to serve other people, but I'm going to get something in return for that, more than what I've got now. And it's not really about the money, right? Money is just paper, right? But it's what money buys you, okay? Money may not buy you, say, happiness, but it will buy you two things. Money will buy you a boat, right? And that might make you happy, right? But money also buys you time. It also buys you time. It buys you the ability to step back and breathe, to make better decisions, to grow, to expand, and to serve other people at a higher level. Just like this time that we've been through here in the last year and a half with COVID. I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate that throughout the years, right, I have been able to get to a level of success in different areas of my life. And one of those areas is financially. So during this time where I see a lot of suffering, fortunately, I've been able to step back and breathe and make decisions, right? Not out of desperation like I did before, but out of inspiration and say, okay, what am I going to do next? How do I expand? What are the next steps? So that was important to me. And to be able to have that now has absolutely changed my life. And to be able to serve people at a higher level, and that's just, that's the icing on the cake right there.
And then like, thanks, Rob. And then, so, you've been working with some of the best top, Fortune 500 companies in America, 6,000 hours of paid public speaking, right? Speaking gigs. Now, like, how did all of this begin to transpire? Because there's maybe people watching this now, some may be already professional speakers. Some might be, well, Rob, that sounds good. I could see that I have the ingredients to actually do that. So maybe, take us through how the whole thing began to open up for you and what you did and your mindset that allowed you to start to achieve these meteoric things.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, mindset, because it's all about mindset. Everything is created within the mind. Everything is created from thought, right? Everything. Anything that ever was in the past, anything that is now in the present, and anything that will ever be tomorrow in the future is created from thought. And I call it the movies that we play in our heads, right? Because we think in images. We think in motion pictures. And once you understand that you are the writer, the director, and the star of the movies that you play in your head, you can write any script you want. You can direct any movie you want. You can have any outcome you want. Anything you want is already within you. It's just most people, they don't know what they want. And then if they get to a point where they figure out what it is they want, they don't know what to do next. But the important part is just figuring out what it is you want to do. I want to be a public speaker. You don't have to know the how. Just like with me, right? It was, okay, declare the why, okay? Why do I want to be a public speaker? Why do I want to get into this space? So for me, that night where I made that decision after nearly losing my life, I went home and it was about 2:00 in the morning. And I remember I was sitting there and I was pretty shook up over the incident. And it wasn't so much the incident. I mean, I've been in situations like that before. It was just, what am I going to do from this point forward? Am I going to just keep doing this over and over again? I'm making $13 an hour. I can't pay my bills. Is this the rest of my life? And, I just finally gave it up. And I said, just give me a sign, I'm going to do something. I declare it right now. I don't know how, but I declare my why. Just give me a sign. And all of a sudden, it was amazing. All of a sudden, Robert, the answer to my prayers showed up in the middle of my living room at 2:00 in the morning. It was one of those late night infomercials, right? You know what I'm talking about? When it's 2:30 in the morning and you're depressed, you can't sleep, and you're sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, and the guy comes on the TV, he's like, is it 2:30 in the morning? Are you depressed? Would you like to be on this yacht? Would you, right? I'm like, mm-hmm. So I bought this infomercial. It was one of those how to make money in real estate with no money, no credit. I had no money. My credit was shot. So I said, hey, why not? The course showed up, and I learned what they taught in that course in about 2 hours. It's easy. The whole wholesaling real estate stuff, I could teach somebody how to do that in 10 minutes. But a couple of days later, I was in a bookstore, and I came across a book that just caught my eye. I didn't know then why. I now know why. But the name of the book was called The Psychology of Achievement, and it's by Brian Tracy. And I picked that book up, and I didn't know who this guy was, right? Here's a guy who never finished high school, right? He's a high school dropout, no college degree. He goes out and does these mediocre jobs. Finally, he gets into sales, straight commission sales, but he's a horrible salesperson, right? He's not making any money. He's about to starve to death. And what he did, he just went to the top sales guy in the company and said, hey, what are you doing so differently than me? We do the same things. Why are you more successful? Why are you achieving better results? And the guy told him, and Brian Tracy started to model this guy. So I just applied the same methodology, right? I took what Brian Tracy had learned and I started to apply it. And Robert, within 9 months of that incident, right, still working full time in law enforcement, I went from $13 an hour to as much as $18,000 an hour, right? Wow. That's over 140,000% increase in 9 months. And it didn't need to take that long. I mean, within 30 days, I was making more money doing the real estate stuff part-time, right, than I was actually making at my job. But 9 months later, I looked at that check and I said, that's it, I'm done. I went part-time with the law enforcement stuff and left that behind, and I started doing the real estate. And we were doing wholesale investments and short sales and things like that. And I became really good at it. And because I was taking what I had learned in law enforcement, those communication skills, and I was even developing more. I was sharpening that saw even more. And I was learning new communication skills, influence, persuasion. And I became more successful and more successful. And people started to notice me in this space. And I'll never forget it. I was on vacation, which I didn't really get to do before. And I was at this resort, I believe it was in Orlando, Florida. And I'm in a swimming pool. And somebody just kind of asked me, hey, what do you do? And I started to tell them. And I get pretty passionate, right, about what it is I do and where I come from and where I'm at now. And before I knew it, Robert, I had like 6 or 7 people standing around me in the pool. I was giving my first pool keynote address, right? And afterwards, this guy comes up to me and he said, you know what? You ought to get people to pay you to teach them what you've learned and how to do this kind of stuff. And I said, that's it. That's what I want to do, right? I love seeing people get excited about unlocking their own potential. And Robert, I come from a very, I come from one of those backgrounds that you hear the story many, many, many times, right? I didn't have the great family unit growing up, right? I did very, very poorly in school. As a matter of fact, I never went to high school. I was a straight D student. I failed the 2nd grade, the 6th grade. I finally quit school in the 7th grade, right? I just gave up. It wasn't because I was stupid. I couldn't learn it. I was so distracted. And I've never been in a high school, not day one. And to this day, I still don't have a college degree. I have no initials before my name or after my name. But like you said, I work with Fortune 500 companies. I work with executives from industries all over the world. Major leaders in the United States Congress are my clients. I work with universities. I work with PhDs, and I have no degree whatsoever. right? Because I have taken what I've learned from law enforcement into entrepreneurship and in real estate, sales, negotiations, and I became a lifelong learner, and I became a sponge and just continued to sharpen that saw. And it has brought me to where I am today. So I finally created that training and development company in 2007. And since then, I've been averaging up to 150 cities a year internationally, doing keynotes and workshops and coaching individuals one-on-one.
Wow. I love the story, Rob, and I love the fact that, all of these things are brought together. Like nothing is wasted, like nothing is wasted. You start off over here, not a great start, law enforcement, near-death experience, but realize the power already of communication and the power of, conflict resolution, de-escalation. You're learning about human psychology. Brian Tracy's book, just added on to the stuff that you already felt that you knew on your skin, which I think is beautiful, the way that it all has come together for you. And then, desperation, inspiration, that's a great takeaway, for people. And obviously the idea is that we want to be inspired by inspiration, but sometimes it's desperation, right? And we need to do what we do, but that's a force that gets us moving, right, in a direction. And the infomercial, late night, early morning, you get rocked by that, the power of reading. And it's great because people can kind of see that, that you weren't born like this. You taught, you learned, you were teachable, coachable, like a sponge, as you said. So people watching this, can realize that maybe you're not there right now where you want to be. But then looking at someone like you, it's clear to see that, hey, you don't need to be there right now. You don't need to know the how, as you said. You focus on the why, which I think is, again, these are great messages for anyone who's watching to take in, to imbibe, and to realize that I can be the writer, director, producer of my movie in my head. And I love hearing this because it reminds me too. There are days, this morning I woke up like a little bit on the wrong side of bed, and just even that just reminds me, that's right. I am the writer, creator, producer of my own movie. What is it that I want to shoot, right? And on that note, I know you have kids, and I have kids too, and maybe people watching this now, have children as well. So what are, for you, some of the most important things that you can pass on to your kids, and how do you do it to give them the same mindset that you have now?
Communication. I mean, Robert, it always goes back to communication, but not just how we communicate with others. Right? Before we communicate with others, we have to communicate effectively with ourselves. We have up to 60,000 thoughts a day. And if you want to lead other people, you first got to be able to lead yourself. If you want to be able to sell other people, you got to be able to sell yourself. And you can take all the labels off if you want: sales, leadership, team building. It's all the same thing. It's influence. Do you have the ability to influence your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, because they're connected? Your thoughts, your movies, that determines your emotional state, your physiology. And then your emotional state, your physiology, that determines the actions that you take or you don't take. And then through communication, your actions, you have the ability to influence the movies that other people play in their heads, which becomes their emotions, which determine their actions and therefore the results again. That's leadership, that's sales, that's team building. So with kids today, especially the way the world is going, how are kids communicating today? Right? They've got this black box in front of them 24/7, and their heads are like this. And we are losing the number one skill set of highly effective people, which is effective, persuasive communication skills. Their communications are in letters. And we know that when we're communicating with people, the words we say, the actual words that come out of your mouth, make up only 7% of what you're communicating, right? That's a text message. That's an email. And that's why they get you in trouble, because you're missing 93% of that message. Because tonality, inflection, how you speed it up and slow it down, right? The auditory component of communication, that's 38% of what you communicate to other people, right? And some people speak so loudly that you can't hear a word they're saying. And then 55% of communication is body language. It's fully what we see. It's body language. So I would, early on, sit down with your kids and explain the importance. And we've got to get back to the important things, that if you truly want a successful life, You have to model after successful people, and truly successful people, right? Even the tech people that are making these devices, they're pretty effective communicators. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at the top of the chain where they're at within these industries and within these companies. So effective persuasive communication, teach your children the master skill of success. And with this skill, I may have done poorly in school, but it wasn't because I was stupid. It's because I didn't learn the way they were teaching me, and because I was distracted, and because what they were teaching me had no relevance on where the movie that I was playing in my head where I wanted to go. And even though I left school when I was 12, I started flying airplanes when I was 13 years old. I soloed on my 16th birthday. I was the youngest pilot in the United States. At 17, I had my pilot's license before I had my driver's license. And I've gone on to get my licenses and ratings. So it wasn't the point that I could not learn. It was the point that what I was being taught, it wasn't making sense to me, right? So look at your kids today, right? You're going to have to sit down and sell this to them, right? Sales, leadership, whatever label you want to put on, but you're going to have to influence the movies in their head of how important effective and persuasive communication skills are. And that means you've got to show them the pain that they will experience in life by not working on this skill set and developing this skill set, and the benefit and the pleasure. But again, people react to pain before they react to pleasure. They react out of desperation before they react out of inspiration. And I know that's hard for younger children and teenagers. I remember my kids, when I first started to really become successful, and I was all about trying to teach them and say, hey, look what I've discovered. Look how much my life is changing. And they're like, yeah, whatever, right? And it wasn't until later on in their lives that they actually started to come back to me and say, okay, that kind of stuff you were trying to tell me when I was a teenager, all right, it's starting to make a little bit more sense now. So start early. Imagine if they taught this kind of stuff in school, right? Instead of trying to teach me algebra that I was never going to use anyways. Don't get me wrong. A formal education is important, right? But we've got to get back to the important things that really determine success. Because I know a lot of really, really intelligent people out here in this world that have, a lot of degrees and diplomas on their walls and initials before and after their names. And they're not successful. They're having a really hard time. And then again, I know people that never graduated high school and never went to college that are hugely successful leaders in life, career, and business throughout this world. So get back to the basics, get back to the important things, and teach your kids as early as possible.
Wow. And thanks for that, Rob. What comes up for me is that, we're in childhood, right? We understand that there's 0 to 8, 0 to 7. This is a very important time where, our worldview is being shaped. The way that we see others is being shaped. The way that we see ourselves, the relationship between our mum and dad, is beginning to slowly but surely steer us on a direction where we growing up, may treat our future partners and all the rest of that. So it's all happening very, very young. So whatever comes into your head first, right? Because we're talking about kids. So is there an experience that comes into your mind that deeply affected you in any direction? And I wonder how it affected you, that you remember, like during that 0 to 8 year age gap.
0 to 8 that really affected me. I would say that it was 0 to 8. Those were interesting times because, like I touched on earlier, I didn't really have a traditional childhood, and most of us have not. And 0 to 8 were some pretty interesting times in my life. I would say probably more around the age of 12 is when something really sticks out. And that was the first time that I got to go on a business trip with my father. My dad was a very successful businessman locally, but he worked his way up from a laborer. I'm talking about he was a commercial fisherman. One of those fishermen who were out there all night pulling in the gill nets to make a living. And then he became a fiberglass grinder at a boat company. And then he worked his way up into supervision and management. And then before long, he was the president and CEO of this a very, very large corporation here in the United States. And I remember the first time that he took me on a business trip with him. And just the experience of going on that trip, but when we got there, we went to dinner with some other business associates. And to sit there that night and listen to my dad tell stories, he was a great storyteller, a very effective communicator. He was very influential, very persuasive man. And to listen and tell the stories, and I remember the faces of everybody, how they were so glued to what he was saying. He was really, right? He was really influencing the movies that they were playing in their heads. And he was a natural born salesman. And that kind of stands out to me. I think that was the first time that I really had an introduction to how important persuasive communication is. See, communication is the number one skill set of highly successful people. Persuasive communication is communication with a goal. In other words, you want somebody to do something as a result to having communicated with them, right? Whether it's leadership, sales, team building. So to become an effective persuasive communicator, that kind of stands out. And taking that, even what I did learn in school, I was a natural born storyteller and talker in school, but it was very reckless. It was all over the place. It was unfocused. And when I got into aviation at a young age, I'm flying airplanes at 17 years old, and I'm on the same radio channel with the airliners and the captains, and we've been flying these jumbo jets, and we're up there, we're all talking together. And I really had to polish my communication skills. And again, it just layered on how important effective communication is when you're flying airplanes with other, big airplanes. And then getting into, as a firefighter and a medic and in law enforcement and being a detective, again, it's another layer. And then becoming an entrepreneur and a real estate entrepreneur, an investor, again, the negotiation needed to be able to figure people out. And then I think that's where I started to get a taste of how important it is to be aware of how other people are communicating back to you, verbally and non-verbally. And then into what I do now as a public speaker, and it is my passion. I anything to do with communication. I'm in the clubhouse room. I'm reading the books. I'm modeling after the people that are just at the top of their game. And it has truly, that one master skill set has brought me to where I am today. Effective, persuasive communication skills. And that's why I get so excited and why I'm so passionate about sharing this with other people, because it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your degrees, your initials. None of that matters. If you can master this number one skill set, then you can write your own ticket in this world. And if I can do it, you certainly can do it, right? So it's just been layering it on the whole time. And my life has become magical as a result of that.
And, Rob, like what I'm hearing, which is it's interesting to me, is this feeling that, that life was, in a way, it was moving you on a direction. Like you talk about your dad and like the stories, and how great would that be for our kids, to get, it takes on a different view to teaching your kids stories, when you put them to bed, if they're very, very young, and getting them in that excitement about the story, which then, as I said, hit you at 12, where you see your dad, becoming this great storyteller and just bringing people into that whole fold. And then you spoke about how your communication skills were being honed, the aviation, the law enforcement, the business, now the speaker, and I can see that in many ways it feels like your life, I'm not sure if you believe in, maybe, do you have complete 100% control over where your life goes, or there's something greater that is kind of moving you in a direction? So I guess the question would be, before we get to the next bit, is, do you feel like in a way that your life has been guided to a certain extent, or do you believe that you literally just took the breadcrumbs and you ran with whatever you had?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, because I can look back on situations in my life where at the time it was like, oh, all is lost. This is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me. How could this happen to me? And, I'm blaming everybody and everything, up above, down below. And you look back now and you're like, thank you. I don't know who's pulling the strings and the levers here, but thank you. So I think it's a combination. I think that my life is being guided. And that's me personally, right? My faith and what I believe in. So I believe, that my life is being guided. However, I believe that success is preparation meeting opportunity. There's no such thing as luck, right? It's preparation meets opportunity. So you have to put yourself in a position to be lucky, right? You actually have to work at it. It's like when the book and the movie The Secret came out. Phenomenal movie, absolutely changed my life. I love it, and I love the people that are in it. I've got to meet some of them. It's borrowed from other great works throughout history, right? Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, right? And even back, it was chiseled in stone, this secret, if you will, right? The building blocks of success. And to be able to understand that a lot of people, when they look at this, they're like, wow, that's fantastic. All I have to do is just, sit back and think about what I want, and wherever attention goes, energy flows. Yeah, that's fine. But you actually have to get off your butt and do something. You have to work your butt off. And that's why since 2007, I have over 6,000 hours of paid public speaking worldwide. And I have was averaging up to 150 cities a year internationally doing events. But there was a method to the madness. I was working my butt off. I mean, I was never home. I was always on an airplane, but there was a reason, right? The reason was to get to this point, because as I work with executives, entrepreneurs, and even individuals that just want to be better communicators and public speakers, and maybe even want to get into the public speaking business, give better presentations, whether you're sales or leadership, whatever it is, I can say, you know what? Been there, done that, know how it works, right? I've tested everything that can be tested, from the front of the room, from a stage, right down to the temperature that you need in the room, to facial hair, to what you wear, to the lighting. I mean, I know what works in this business because I've gone out there, I've learned from the masters, but I've gone out there and tested it myself, and I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And I think it has brought me to a place where I can really, really comfortably say, hey, I can help you. I can honestly help you get to where you want to go with your communication challenges.
Got it. And I've got three more questions. Now, one would be, you're now also passing on all this knowledge and wisdom, as you just mentioned, in a coaching arena. So maybe you can explain to people how they can work with you, how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do I do a mixture. So pre-COVID, I'm a public speaker. I do a lot of corporate training and association events. So I do full day, multi-day trainings on communication topics, leadership, sales, team building, customer service, things like that. Probably about 80% of my business is doing what we would call workshop type seminars. 20% is keynotes, and I love keynotes. Keynotes are fun. I'll fly over to London and speak at the Excel Center at the arena in London, man. It's great to walk out there and speak to thousands and thousands and thousands of people at a time, but you don't really get to spend a lot of time with them, and you're off to the next one, right? But I also do coaching. And especially now during COVID, I've kind of opened that part of my business up, and that's where I'm working with individuals with their communication challenges, whether you want to be a more effective communicator, whether you want to develop and deliver powerful presentations, or whether you want to improve your public speaking skills. That's mainly what I'm focusing on right now and coaching with people. And the cool thing about it is with technology, here I am in Daytona Beach, Florida, Robert, and there you are in Bali, right? On the other side of the world. I believe it's tomorrow there, right? So I'm speaking in the time. With technology, we can work with anybody anywhere. So right now I'm working with people via Zoom. And, it's, you and I met on the new social media app Clubhouse. And that is a great place. And I've been meeting so many people on there and bringing them on as coaching clients. And we've been having a really good time. The best way to get a hold of me would just be to go to my website. It's Robert Carrow, Carrow.com. robertcarrow.com. All my information's on there. And also there's, on my scheduling page, there's a link that you can click on to actually book time on my calendar. And Robert, I would like to offer any of your viewers a free complimentary coaching session with me, and they can access that through my website.
Wonderful, mate. Great. And like, so some tips for maybe some people watching who might be saying, you know what, like, I'm loving what you're saying. Sound like a great guy. Love your background. It hasn't all been a bed of roses, right? You're clearly a person who's like a servant leader. So you're there for the people, right? You've done really well, which is great. So you got runs on the board, right? So give me a taste. So it's like when you're doing some of these workshops, working with some of these Fortune 500 companies, like, what have you found is maybe one that comes into your mind has been some of the biggest challenges that as a corporation is facing compared to an individual when you're doing your individual coaching? So are there any common denominators that you've seen, and how did you help them to overcome them?
So a lot of it, very, very similar stuff, but when when you're working with an individual, you're working with an individual. When you're working with a corporation, you're still working with individuals, but all these individuals come to one place during the day, right? And they have to coexist, and that's where problems are created. And the main problem that I see, and what I really do a lot of work with corporations, is that when it comes to communication, effective persuasive communication, knowing it's the number one skill set of successful people and effective people, that most people don't even know enough to know that they don't even know when it comes to communication. They don't know what they're thinking. They ain't even in tune with what they're feeling, and they certainly don't know how that's showing up on their face and in their communication. And it's causing them all kinds of problems. So a lot of the work I do is with emotional intelligence, right? Working with people on how to really tap into being an emotionally intelligent person, how to really become a more self-aware person, to become a more socially aware person. In other words, being self-aware of, what's the movie, what is my emotional state, am I in psychological comfort or psychological discomfort, and how am I showing up? And then social awareness and emotional intelligence is, how is that communication? How am I showing up? How is that affecting the people around me? And how are they likely to respond back to me? So that's a lot of what I do with them. And also that people think that it's one size fits all when it comes to communication. And it's not. We are all very different in how we communicate, how we are influenced, and how we are persuaded to do things. And a lot of people, they tend to use what's called the golden rule when it comes to communication, right? And we've all heard that before: do unto others the way, we would like to be done unto, which is fine when it comes to things like values and ethics and things like that. But I learned from a very, very amazing man. His name is Dr. Tony Alexandra. Dr. Tony Alexandra, he's the author of the Platinum Rule, right? And he taught me the Platinum Rule, and it's something that I still to this day share in my events. And the Platinum Rule is do unto others the way they would like to be done unto, right? Do unto others the way they would like to be done unto, not the way you would like to be done unto, because everybody's not like you. We all communicate differently, and we are influenced or persuaded to do things differently. So understanding that, and once you understand that there are four, we can really narrow them down to four different communication, some people call them personality styles, but what they are is behavioral styles. And once we figure out how we show up, we can then also figure out how other people show up. And then when we have these encounters with people, we can change up our communication skills in order to build rapport with people, because some of us are exact opposites, and you really have to make a big effort to change up the way you show up if you want to build rapport. And you cannot influence or persuade somebody to do something until you've established rapport. So that's a lot of what I do corporate-wise. And with individuals, a lot of it is the fear of public speaking, right? People believe that, they have this fear of public speaking. And I would like to challenge that and say, you know what? No, you don't. People don't have a fear of public speaking. We've been speaking our whole lives. The fear is of judgment and ridicule. And what we have to do is just really do a mindset shift, right? Create a different movie write a different script, get into another theater, and really understand that people are not there to judge you or ridicule you. As a matter of fact, every audience that I've spoken to around the world, they're really there rooting for you and they want you to succeed. So once you have that shift, right, then your emotional state shifts and then your actions will shift. So that's a lot of what I deal with on the individual side.
Love it. And, you know, mate, perhaps people watching now, you know, what would be a powerful tip, a powerful maybe process that somebody could do now, you know, when they leave us now at this point in what day are we? We're like Thursday here in Bali and Wednesday evening in the US. So that's something that they could go and try on for size that will give them a bit of a breakthrough, a bit of a change of state maybe. Perhaps they're about to go and speak to an audience. You just mentioned, which I love, that the audience is actually rooting for you, right? And it's not a fear of public speaking; it's a fear of judgment and ridicule, you know, which I love. So maybe a tip around there that somebody could take upon now, could try on for size, and next time they're going to go out and speak to somebody, so they can have a shift for themselves.
I would say number one, you know, just as an individual, remember that every communication is a presentation, and every presentation is an opportunity. I don't care if it's a one-off in a hallway, you're speaking to a team of 20 and you're at the front of the room, or you're in the arena speaking to thousands. Every communication is a presentation, and every presentation is an opportunity. So even on the one-offs where you're passing people in the hallway, my number one tip would be smile. It's so easy. Just smile. And just by smiling, that does something for you. That can change your physiology, right? Your emotional state. You change your physiology, you change your emotional state. Just smile. It's been scientifically proven that you can't be thinking negative thoughts if you're smiling, unless you're a psychopath. All right. So, you know, maybe try and smile more often. And plus, just by smiling, you can trigger other people's movies that can very quickly change their physiology, their emotional state, and you never know where that's going to lead once they pass you and go on with their day. As far as a public speaking situation, number one, be prepared. Always be prepared. That's the number one biggest problem I see with people is they wing it. Always be prepared. Have a presentation, know your presentation. You know, when you get there, understand that you're going to have, you know, energy. You know, I have energy. I don't call it fear, right? Because it's all in how you look at it, but we all have it. It's the butterflies in the stomach. It's the energy. For me, it's the energy of excitement. For somebody else, they may say, well, it's the energy of fear. I'm going to look at it and turn it into a positive. Somebody else is going to look at it and turn it into a negative. But accept that energy and use it. Visualize yourself. Begin with the inner mind and visualize yourself walking out on stage, delivering your opening, and everybody smiling back at you. And then visualize yourself walking off the stage and everybody applauding you, and you've delivered an amazing presentation. Because if you can see it and hear, if you can hear it and hear, if you can feel it, smell it, taste it, your thoughts, even though it may be a fiction movie at this point, but see, the mind doesn't know the difference between fiction and nonfiction. It only accepts what you're telling it. So if you start playing that movie of you succeeding, that will change your physiology and your emotional state. And then go out there on stage and deliver. And then move. Use your space, whether you're at the front of the room or on a podium or on a stage. Use the entire space within the limits of the audience from left to right. Stopping, you know, in the center, move off to the right, plant, address, back to center, off to the left, plant, address. Right? But keep moving. That burns off that energy. And also use your body, right? Use your hands, use your arms, make gestures. And again, that will continue to burn off that energy. So just a couple of tips that I teach my clients on public speaking.
Great, Rob. Thank you so much, mate. And as you know, now how we end the show, which we're doing about a minute or so, is anything that maybe comes into your mind. Perhaps it's reinforcing something that you said already, or it might be something that perhaps you wanted to say coming in, or something that might drop in as something you think, hey, this could be really important for people to get. So we'll give you an opportunity to do that, and then we'll close the show directly after. And whilst you're thinking about that, I just want to really thank you, mate, for we had a few technical challenges today, and mate, you're still here, smile on your dial, giving value, right? Very important. Love what you do, love who you are, and thanks for being that guy on Clubhouse. I know you don't do this very often, but I really appreciate you responding to my request to reach out to you to do this. I really am impressed by who you are. I love what you say. I love the fact that you walk your talk, and I can see I see something different each time I speak to you, and I can just see this this graduation, from you being like a young kid, doing all the aviation, and just seeing your communication and your relationship with it change and evolve and grow and become, like the master that you are now. So I'm absolutely loving that. And for those of you watching, so remember, Robert Carrow, you can catch him on his website, robertcarrow.com, right? That's your website. So reach out to him. He's in Florida, but technology allows us to be right next to each other as we are now. And remember, he's also a parent, right? And this is one of the things that people don't often talk about. This thing about programming our kids, and I use that word deliberately in such a powerful way, is so important. And I'm now really focusing more and more on that. Our kids are very young. They're only 5 and 6. But I think it's such a powerful thing to start to ingrain and start to bring this up and share this information very, very young, because with this thing of that, I've got my phone right here, right? Like this is taking over. It's already taken over. So we really do need to find a way to balance it out and to bring, those beautiful skills of humanity back to the equation that allows us to really see and effectively empower and influence one another to the positive. So thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate it for being on SpeakuP Monday, inspiring humanity. And mate, so over to you to close out the show. Thanks a lot, Rob. Most appreciated. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robert, for the invitation. You're an amazing man. I truly love spending time with you. And anytime, I'm here for you. And thank you, for your audience, for participating in this. And this has been a treat. It really has. It's been a joy. So if I had to bring it, to one thing, it's communication is the number one determinant of success. It's more important than anything else. More important than your formal education, more important than any degree or diploma you have on your wall, more important than your products, your services, or your ideas is your ability to influence and persuade other people to buy into you, right? And understand that it starts within you, right? Leadership, right, is an inside-out job. Communication is an inside-out job. Influence, you have to be able to influence yourself. You got to be able to lead yourself first. Last time I was on an airplane, the flight attendant said, hey, if the mask falls, who do you put it on first, right? Yourself. And then on the child with the most potential, right? But you got to start off with yourself. And success is an inside-out job. So get yourself straight, get your head straight, get those movies, right? Write some new scripts, right? Get in the state and master this amazing skill of effective persuasive communication skills and go out there and write your own ticket in this world. I want to thank everybody so much.
Wow. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Yeah.